Louisburg GA has been a constant in my life. From the time I remember some of the older players, Joe Stanton and people like that had made a name for themselves playing up in Bennett's Field originally, and afterwards in McHale Park. It has always been something that you kind of first you aspired to playing for Louisburg. It made huge friendships. Back when I was a young lad, you didn't know people from the other end of the parish. Most people didn't go to secondary school, so you only knew them when you met them as an adult. But this brought young fellas together from a very young age, and created friendships, brought about greater understanding of each other, and lots of argy-bargy, lots of rough and tumble on football fields. But that always ended as they said, the whitewash, and you became friends, long-term friends forever.
Yeah.
And it also gave you, I think, a passport when you left Louisburg, that you could always go up to the local football field in any parish, meet people there, and the first thing they'd say, do you play football? And if you did, why don't you join us for a kickabout?
It was a conversation.
Which it meant that you had friends to go to dances, you had friends and you made those friends for life as well. But while this was great when you were away, you always thought, how are Louisburg doing?
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and play with Louisburg again, which we did. And I think friendship was more important than winning.
Well, as Michael said, first of all, and the most important thing are the friends, your colleagues on the team, or your teammates, and then the people you meet from the other clubs. I first started playing for Louisburg in 1954 as an under-16, and it was my first. I played football around the house and always had a ball to kick, but that was my first official game, if you like, where you played with 14 others, and I got to know people at that time, and I knew very few people in Louisburg at that time, or in the Louisburg parish. But in later life, it became important because it was, I got more involved on the coaching side.
Yeah.
And that did me a lot of good myself, my health, and I enjoyed it very much. For instance, I had to get, to something that you were looking forward to.
Yes.
And you had to, you were committed completely to do this 2 days a week and a game on Sunday. And, it helps insofar, mainly, is that you have this in your mind. This is something very important after the family and after the job at the time. And I don't know, it was good for me.
Right.
And I got involved in 81.
Yeah.
And I had some great years, all through the 80s, up to 1990. And all of that, I mean, it's a long, since that I've been an occasional spectator.
I think Noel is right. I think it's a very good thing health-wise.
Yes.
You have something positive in your life. There's the humdrum things outside football and which you have to go through in life anyway, but this is something where you're meeting people in a positive way.
Yes.
You're playing with them, you're communicating with them, and I think, I know Noel, when he talks about coaching and management, he did about that for about 10 years for Louisburg with the senior team, which is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, like all of us that have had our bad days and good days in sport, overall, when you look back on it, you say it was well worth doing.
I became chairman in 95, 96, 97. So that was, it was more involvement, in fact, at the time, because chairman's job is never finished. But so that was a period where the club had its best period on the field, and they became a senior team on 2 occasions. So for me, I was the commitment continued.
Yeah.
For it continues to this day, really, by going to meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
The club was formed in 29, and the colours they wore originally were green and yellow, or green and gold.
Right.
And that went on until sometime, I'd say, maybe into the late 30s or early 40s, when the club, I think it may be after the club amalgamated with Morris at one stage.
44, I think.
In 44, and they won they went to a county final, lost the county final. But I think it may be after that they changed the colours to blue with the gold sash.
Right.
Sash. And at a later stage, they won a county title actually with the in 1950 with the blue and gold sash.
Right.
And then it went from to a blue with the gold band. And it remained that way, I think, until we went to the yellow and black back in I'd say the late 60s.
Yes, around that time.
Now, you'd have played in the 60s.
I played with I think it was the hoop,
The
and
hoop,
the blue
yeah.
jersey.
Yeah. And after then it remained yellow and black until the club went out of existence briefly in 79. We got it going again in late 80. So in 81, it was a white jersey with red collar and cuffs. And occasionally, the next jersey I'd say was bought was a pure red jersey with white collar and cuffs. So the colours were the same, red and white at that stage. And I'm not so sure when the yellow and black came back, but it was definitely there. That was in 80, so it would be maybe...
The 80s was maybe the red and white.
Yeah, and I'd say by 90 or before 90, we were back in the yellow and black. And it has remained yellow and black, or black and amber as they now say, ever since. But we're nearly 40 years now back in action from 1980.
Yes, 40 years. Yeah. From 80.
It's going from strength to strength, and I mean the facilities that are in Louisburg now are unbelievable.
Yes.
Yeah. We tugged out at Windbushes and Hollybogs back in McHale Park. I'll tell you a good one about McHale Park. Jan O'Neill, who was a great Mayo player and a Louth player, won All Irelands with Louth. Jan O'Neill played with Castlebar, and he told me that we came to play in Louisburg, and it was in McHale's field. He got a free in, and he placed the ball on a bunch of rushes, and he kicked it over the bar.
Yes.
Now a small bunch of rushes. And shortly afterwards, Castlebar were awarded another free in from much the same place, and Dan took the ball to place it on the bunch of rushes, but the bunch of rushes was gone. While the game was going on, a man was going around with his scythe cutting rushes.
The owner of the field.
The owner of the field. So, I mean, things were much...
He didn't want them to have an advantage.
More easy.
Things were moving fast.
Yeah.
The other great thing, great change since, I suppose, 1980, about that time, is that the board and oak.
Yes.
For young people from the age of 10 upwards, and all the people that were committed to those teams, the other people actually that deserve the huge credit for looking after underage teams. They were committed just as much as anybody else with a junior team or a senior team, and it was invaluable what they did for clubs, all clubs. Now a lot of them would have been lost to football once they went away to college generally in the 80s and 90s. Well, not so much in the 80s, but definitely in the 90s. And it did. They benefited from it in several ways. That first of all, it was a social outing for the kids rather than
Yeah.
what they do today. Look at a screen all day long, or as long as they're allowed. So in that sense, it was very good for them, because they were with their peers, and they enjoyed it, and they had it was good exercise, plenty of fresh air,
Yeah.
and that's lacked a bit today. Not that the Board and Oaks are still doing fabulous work. And I want, that has to be recorded. I'm talking about our own club now,
Yeah.
and that happened elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
It's a
Well, you-
huge
you-
commitment.
mentioned-
Very organised and very well done.
Yeah, you mentioned under 10s, but at this stage now, the Board and Oak is training from under 6s up. They're constantly doing research to see when is it that the sponge, that the brain can take in more and learn the skills themselves. So the other day there we had registrations, just to give you a bit of insight into it. 174 is what registered in Louisburgh Club in Borden and Oak.
That'll be up to under 18.
That would include minors.
Minor, yeah.
But that's
100.
174.
That's mad.
It's great numbers, like, for a small club, and it would suggest.
And only the 2 schools.
That's right. It would suggest that we're in a strong position going forward.
Oh, it would.
I presume,
But it's a huge
Of course
change.
it has to come from there.
Yeah.
It's a huge change, because when I started playing football, we had no under 16 team in
Yeah.
Louisburgh, and we had a minor team which played one game if we lost it, or 2 or 3 games if we were more successful.
Yeah.
So this was, the development at the moment, like, it's a huge thing, and it's in all clubs, and it shows the commitment of the people.
Huge.
And the facilities in Louisburgh at the moment are second to none. And it shows the commitment of the community, not just footballers and not just football people. The dressing rooms, the gym, that whole complex was put there by just people in the community.
That's right.
Everybody in the community rode in with that.
Voluntary.
And there was great leadership,
Financed by the community.
absolutely
Yeah.
great leadership, but the community did all the financing, and an awful lot of people that never kicked a ball or never attended a GA meeting came there, gave their days as labourers, block layers, carpenters. It was an unbelievable achievement, and that is to the parish, not just to the club.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic achievement for a community to have done that. And I think with the kind of work that's going on now at the grassroots, we can look forward to more
Yes.
successful
Hopefully, yeah.
players in the future.
Well, there would have been about 30 players training at that time, and obviously only 15 of them could play. And the fellas who may not have been playing at the beginning, they still came and trained and enjoyed it, and were encouraged to keep coming. And even though they may not play on the day, they would all be there. I know that in one, you look at one program there from that time, and there were 32. That's 17 subs.
Right.
Now, there were 3 or 4 of them who would probably be playing before the end of the game, but the others worked themselves. Some of them, very anxious to get on the team, and they'd work themselves up and they trained that bit harder, and eventually they would.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that time was there was very little immigration, but people after their leaving cert, they were going to college now, a lot of them, instead of going abroad.
Yeah.
And of course that gave you, every weekend you had the guys, the college guys, as Michael said earlier.
Yeah.
And so you were rarely short of players.
Yeah.
And the best thing about it was the guys, there were quite a few fellas there who were just there for for their fitness.
Yes.
And for their health, as you said, and they kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. Now they weren't interested in playing on a team, but they played on a team in training.
Yes.
And of course, it was a great social
Yes.
outing for them as
As well.
well. Some of them may not have gone home straight after training, but That's for another day. Yeah, well, the most important thing in answering that is that everybody is treated the same way, regardless of whether you're the star player or not.
Yeah.
Down to the guy who doesn't, who just trains. You're all treated equally, so that helps in that situation. And there was always the possibility that you might get a game,
Yeah.
And some of them wouldn't play like in the game. They didn't want to.
They just didn't want to.
They didn't want to. No. I mean,
Right.
you're talking about over 30. Some nights of training there'd be over 30 guys there. The most difficult thing is picking a team in relation to the people who believe they should be there and may not be. And the time to sort this out is beforehand. So I always made a point of it. I knew the guys I'd be expecting to be, and it was 50-50 really.
Yeah.
I'd make a point of talking to them beforehand, so this wasn't thrown in their face in the dressing room in front of all their colleagues. So fairness, but firmness as well. We won 3 in the 80s. We won 3 West Mallow championships. We were beaten 2 county finals by the same team, Kilmaine, and we won in the county championship in '87 against Glencorrib.
Yeah.
But on the intermediate grade had been introduced, I think, sometime in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Before that was just junior and senior.
Yeah.
And we were promoted after winning in '84. That was centenary year as well. That was an important year to win something. Oh, I do straight away. It's winning the county championship in '87. After many attempts, I was there. It's a long time from 1980 to '87.
That's right.
So there was a lot of perseverance there.
Yes.
That would be the moment.
Yeah.
It was in November, wet, soft, McHale Park, dark, wet, and windy as well.
Right.
But I'd say most of the people involved there, they'll never forget that, obviously, either. And there were again, we're back to the 32, 33.
Yeah.
They were all treated the same.
Yeah.
Got their medals.
The significance of a song.
Very important.
What song?
Very important in the right place.
Yes.
After a game, this was the 1980s, and you had a group of people, anyone that could sing sang, and that was it.
Yes.
And the opposition would always come with you you said to them at that time now, we're going to Durkins, it was usually. And they wanted to know where we were going, and they joined us there. And sometimes, lots of times now, there wouldn't be any singing at that. You're talking about the afternoon, and fellas had work to do. Farming folk.
Yeah.
And we had our song.
What song?
Red as the Rose would be the most common one.
And is there a reason why it was Red as a Rose?
I don't know that.
Was the song there before you?
No.
Right.
I don't think so.
Don't know now.
No, it was a song I used to sing, and I sang it.
Oh, was that, so you liked the song yourself?
Oh,
and
I did.
You sang
yes,
it.
I did.
On an occasion.
Yeah, I did.
And it seems
before that.
right.
So.
But it seems that
I
song
don't know
has
if
stuck.
it's not still there though.
Oh, I think it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
what is it?
Very good if it is.
Yeah, like I mean, the lads won. They sang it on the square when they brought the cup to Louisburg. What was that? 2016, is it?
Yeah.
They sang it on the square. All of the lads together.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the team that won the intermediate championship in 2003.
2003, yeah.
And began in 95,
95.
the first one, and 2003, the second one.
Yeah.
That team, Now, obviously, in that space of time, it wasn't exactly the same personnel, but they were all there.
Yeah.
They played senior football for 5 years, and I don't know how many years senior football they played after the 03 one, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was the team. I have no hesitation saying that was the best football team ever.
Right.
Came from Louisburg.
I know that team would have been the most successful in that they won in the 2003 team because they played senior from 2003 then till 2009.
Right.
So that was the longest spell Louisburg ever played senior.
Yeah, but
Mick O'Malley of Ascalon won the All-Ireland Minor Championship with Mayo in 35.
Right.
He was still in Jarlath's in 36 and he was a sub on the Mayo senior team that won the All-Ireland. And he played in the All-Ireland semi-final in 37.
Yeah.
He won a number of national leagues with Mayo. So he was probably one of the most decorated of all Louisburg players.
Yeah.
Austin O'Toole of Monyin was another great player, and he was an all-round athlete. He was a handballer, cyclist, weight thrower, everything. But he was a brilliant footballer as well. And he actually played Munster school rugby when he was in Rossgrey.
Right.
Then you came along to Joe Stanton and Tom Stanton. Tom actually played captain the Dublin team.
He did in 1944.
In 44.
Wow.
And he played for Mayo and then he immigrated when he was a doctor. Joe, of course, won a junior All-Ireland in 50 and senior All-Ireland in 51.
Yeah.
And he on the junior team with them was Anthony Morrison of Louisburg. Anthony O'Toole of Louisburg.
Okay. Yes.
And Paddy Gannon.
And Paddy Gannon was a sub, but the other two men actually played in the final.
Yes.
And in 57, Mayo won it again. And on that team, Colm O'Toole was on it and Tommy Lyons of the Colony. These were fellas, obviously, you'd be thinking of putting into the Mayo team, or the Louisburg team, if you were picking an all.
Yes.
Then you had John Gibbons, who, as I mentioned, won an All-Ireland under 21 in 67 and played with Mayo and afterward played with Meath.
Yeah.
There wasn't too many. John Lyons, of course, of Ahony played with Wicklow. Austin O'Malley played with Mayo and Wicklow.
Yes.
They were, I suppose, the established kind of county players.
Well, in the 80s, when I was involved with the team, there was one person that I must mention above all others, and that was Pádraig Welsh.
Right.
He was an outstanding player, an outstanding free taker. And I often wondered why he wasn't on the Mayo team.
My father used to wonder the same thing.
I thought it strange at the time, and I mentioned his name to some people, and they should have a look at him. And I never mentioned it to Pádraig himself now. But he'd be the one.
There was another great player, John Tony Burns of Clare Island.
Yes.
But he went to England, and he was picked on the all-time
Warwickshire
or Birmingham team, I think. But he was a powerfully strong player, he had just got on the Mayo team and immigrated. But that was the order of the day in the 50s and 60s. Practically everybody immigrated.
Right.
So you lost a lot of your players before they really made the grade here at all.
Yeah.
I think the success really to bring it up to senior level is the feeder system, and at the moment I think it's particularly good because last year Louisburg were very successful. We'd say they won, they did well, they got to the quarter final of the intermediate championship. Their junior B team won everything in sight. And normally your junior B team is an old team, but last year it was a particularly young team.
Yeah.
It was minors, under 21 players who showed tremendous skill. They may not be ready altogether for senior football at this time, but they looked like players that can develop and play at senior level. And that's the only bit. I think if you need to be pushing fellas out all the time. You need people coming in that are putting pressure on the players that are there. And if you have that, I think you can make a senior team. But I don't think there was any time in my time involved in the club that it was more positive as it is now.
Great.
I think there's more players there that are capable of playing at a higher standard than at any time in the past.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
I don't think any of the Louisburg team at the moment can say there isn't pressure on them to keep their place, or very few of
Yes,
them anyway.
that's what you need, yeah.
And you have the players there coming in at 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are pushing for places.
Yeah.
And if that can continue, we could be a senior team.
Yes.
As long as they're happy at it, as long as they're going in and enjoying football and enjoying the friendships. And I think when it comes down to it all, at the end of the road, nobody's looking at the medals they've won, or they're not really paying any attention to what has been won in the past. They'll think back on the friendships they made, the friendships that endured, and you know we are still talking here about Michael O'Malley of Ascalon, Austin Toole, that are dead, long dead.
Years.
You know,
40 years and more.
Joe Stanton, you know. So you know, if people are thinking, you know, about the community, about what went ahead of them, and what they want to keep, you know, that's what's worthwhile. Like nobody remembers with whether you won the championship in 35 or 38, you know, and what they won, or you know who played in it really, but that there was a community there striving together to do something kind of for the parish and for their own enjoyment.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose May Fane comes first when it comes down to it. You're not going there thinking, I must do this for the parish. I'm thinking, I'm going there because I enjoy being there. And I enjoy the fun. And it's great when you lift the parish with a success, or you see the parish coming on board, doing the dressing rooms, and, you know, like it's a mighty little thing in any parish to have a club, whether it's Gaelic football or anything else maybe, but that is representing the club and representing the people and going out and doing their best, you know, and enjoying it.
Well, just the one thing I'd say is today's players, you know, county players mainly, they don't enjoy. They couldn't enjoy what they're doing. This is only my own opinion.
Why do you say that?
Because it's like a job.
Okay.
You know, they're committed totally, completely, utterly committed to it. Change their whole lifestyle to be part of that. The enjoyment, that was the difference between the teams that I remember going back to 1954 with Louisburg. You enjoyed it. They don't. I believe that and that's creeping into the clubs as well. I think that's because they're overdoing their physical side of things.
Okay. So what
I just saw recently a fella was given an account of how a team performed, and he said, such a fella togged out.
Full stop.
that's it, full stop.
You know, so,
Brilliant.
no, I think though, you see, the commitment is huge,
Yes.
even at local level, at Louisburg level even.